Hi, welcome to Travel Tales with Judith. I'm Judith, and I share stories and experiences from a lifetime of journeying. I think this is episode 13, and if I'm going to name an episode, I'm going to call this Don't Forget Your Insect Repellent. So, a number of years ago, my friend Carol, who I mentioned in another video when I was talking about something that happened in Bolivia, and I were traveling with another friend of mine on a trip that I'd set out or that I had developed that went from Belize to northern Guatemala to into Mexico by boat, uh, up a river, and then to Chiapas, and then ending in Oaxaca. It was a big trip. It was an adventure trip, and probably there'll be other videos talking about some of the things that happened on that one. But we were in Belize first, and it was hot and humid. I mean, when I stepped off the plane into Belize, it felt like I was walking into a blanket of water. And I don't do well with heat and high humidity, but I knew it was a limited time. And sometime during that time, or maybe when we got over the border into northern Guatemala, where we were visiting Tikal, the big ruin there, Carol got a mosquito bite. Now, Carol was this really good friend of mine. I loved Carol. Um, and she traveled with me lots of times. And what I really admired about Carol was that she had a lot of fears, but she worked through them every time. She didn't let it stop her. And while I didn't always understand her fears, um, I had to give her a lot of credit. So she started to complain of a mosquito bite that she'd gotten right about here, and it was itching her really badly. Okay, I mean, I've had mosquito bites, and they can be really annoying, and they can itch, and you can gripe about them a lot. So the trip went on, and Carol continued day after day after day to complain about this itchy mosquito bite on her head. And after a couple weeks of daily complaining about the mosquito bite, um, I have to be a little ashamed of myself here and say I was getting annoyed about it. I didn't really want to hear about the mosquito bite anymore. Seemed to me like 2 weeks is a long time to complain about one mosquito bite. And I was kind of maybe irritated, and maybe she could notice it, and maybe she couldn't, but she probably could. So anyway, that went on until we get home. And then she called me probably 10 days after we got home, and she says, "You know my mosquito bite?" And I said, yeah, I know your mosquito bite. She said, "Well, I went to the doctor, and the doctor told me that I had obviously scratched a mosquito bite when my hands weren't completely clean, and it got infected. And that's why it's still there. And it's, you can feel there's a bump there. And he said it's infected, and he's put me on antibiotics for 10 days." And I said, "Well, good. I'm glad, I'm glad you're getting it taken care of. And I'm glad that it hopefully is going to calm down. I mean, this by now we have a mosquito bite that's itching for an awful long time." So after the 10 days, she calls me back and she says, "Okay, I did the antibiotics. It didn't make any difference." She said, "So now I'm going to go up to the University of Washington Medical School of, I don't know what they call it, of um, infectious diseases or things you pick up in other countries and bring back here that people don't know too much about." So she went up there. She got an appointment. She went up there. And this is her account. The doctor saw her and took a look at it and said, "Okay," he said, "what happened," he said, "is that yes, you have a mosquito bite, but the mosquito bite had either on its little antenna, or what mosquitoes have when it stung you, had botfly eggs. And the botfly eggs obviously got planted in that bite. And that's why you are having trouble with this for such a long time." So he says, just a minute now. And he takes a little tiny scalpel and a tweezers, and he opens this up and he takes out a botfly larva. Now, Carol had always worried about anything that could happen on trips, right? And here now, it's not just a botfly. I mean, sorry, it's not just a mosquito. It's a botfly larva. And so he says, can you just wait a minute? He says, I have some doctors here that have never seen botfly larva. Do you mind if they come in? And she says, no, that's fine. They can come in. So they come in, and then he says, okay. And he takes the second botfly larva out of her head. Well, when she told me this, of course, I felt horrible because she really did have something to complain about, and I had not been as tolerant and compassionate as I should have. And the doctor then, took care of whatever was there and cleaned it up, and that was the end of it. I think she ended up with a little bump on her head from that. Okay, so the after story is about 6-8 months later. I'd been down in Central America again, and I picked up a stomach something or other that was not getting cleared up. And so after being back 2 or 3 weeks and still having issues, I decided I'd go over to that department in the University of Washington Medical School and see if they could tell me what it was, because a number of things had been ruled out and they didn't know what it was. So I went there and I'm talking to the doctor, and I said, my friend was in here a while back. I said she had botfly eggs in her head. And the doctor looks at me and he goes, you mean the famous botfly woman? He said, that's what we call her. We still have those larvae. He said, we have those larvae, if anyone wants to see them. And he said, that's what we call her. We call her the famous botfly woman. So take your insect repellent. Mosquitoes can cause a lot of problems. They can cause dengue. They can cause malaria. They can cause chikungunya. And they can plant botfly eggs in your head.